What is going on? The music gets to play. The music does get to play. We'll roll it
We'll
again. We're gonna
we'll
roll
take
again.
it.
Hey,
We stole the point. We stole the point.
as long as we're hearing the music, that's all I care about. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I'm your host, Rob Baintain, joined with my two co-hosts, Justin Lowe and Nick Franco. The Celtics, they had a little White House hangover here, but they escaped the Washington Wizards in the third game of the Emirates NBA Cup, 108-96, guys. The Celtics now advancing to 2-1 in their NBA Cup journey this year. They hopefully will be the top of their division or their group, hoping that the Chicago Bulls game does finish the way that it's trending towards, guys. Tonight, it was a lackluster performance from Boston. However, they were able to outperform a weak and depleted Washington Wizards team, guys. There is a good amount of stuff we can talk about tonight. We saw Tatum and Brown, they kind of struggled from behind the arc as a team. However, before we kind of jump into the X's and O's, we know the drill, guys. Your initial thoughts and takeaways from tonight's win.
The first best offensive rating team, the Boston Celtics, went against the worst rated defensive team, the Washington
in
Wizards.
NBA history, mind you.
In NBA history.
This was
and it didn't seem like that was the case whatsoever tonight. The Celtics were very lackluster on the offensive end. I think they didn't do a very good job of calling the audibles until the end of the game. However, they were able to steal those points away at the end of the game. You could see Joe Mazzulla picking up the intensity. It is an NBA Cup game. And a Washington Wizards team who brought a good performance tonight. That was one of my first times seeing Sarr perform. He looked like a very promising player. He should have went number one in this year's draft if he didn't miss out on that Atlanta Hawks meeting. But I think that AB and JT did a good job of finding a way to get the job done at the end of the day, but it took a while for them to get there.
Yeah, this is one of those you have to find different ways to win type of games. And listen, I understand Washington historically one of the worst defensive teams, the worst. Celtics, one of the greatest offensive teams. But you're going to have nights like this, and it's very important that you figure out how to win when your star players don't have it. Listen, Jaylen Brown tonight, 31 points, I believe 11 rebounds. Jason Tatum didn't shoot the ball well either, well at all. Nearly found himself in triple-double territory once again. So there definitely are some positives to their games, despite their poor shooting numbers tonight. But the Celtics to come away with a 12-point win in an ugly game, it's huge. It is absolutely huge, especially when point differential matters, especially when the standings are so tight in the NBA Cup. This was a big win for the Celtics on the road here tonight. Looked sloppy from the start. Huge props to the Celtics bench to stay ready, guys. Listen, the starting five, we know what they're capable of. It's really hard to sustain their all-star type play every single game, every single minute in a 48-minute game, 82-game span season. So when they don't have their night, which is rare, it's really good to see guys like Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Xavier Tillman step up in that slot and come away with the victory here. So ugly game, but I just heard Eddie House talking about it on NBC Sports Boston. I'd much rather an ugly win than a pretty loss. A win's a win.
I agree. You know, anytime you can get a win, it's something good from it. I thought tonight the bench did a phenomenal job at getting the Celtics starters to the finish line. And the Celtics starters letting them and pushing them across it. Hauser, Pritchard, I liked what they gave us off the bench. White was a timely score to start that fourth, and then it was all Tatum and Brown towards the end of it. I don't love our execution against weaker teams so far this year. I think that when you see how we executed against Cleveland and how we've done it against New York and the upper echelon caliber teams in the league, it's very, the attention to details offensively is so noticeable and is so there. We're driving, we're getting good shots, we're getting good catch and shoot threes. They're open, they're in space. Then fast forward to tonight against a Washington Wizards team that, you know, is clearly struggling. They don't do that. And I think it's a little bit frustrating here, guys, to see the Celtics and how kind of they executed down the stretch. However, again, positive, Tatum and Brown were able to close it out for us tonight. So in that regard, I'm happy. But again, I don't know what you guys think, but it feels like against the lower caliber tier teams, the Celtics are not executing properly.
It seems like they're doing enough to win, but not enough to dominate. They're almost riding the narrative, or being in the other team is in the driver's seat for the against the Celtics. It seems like the Wizards had a fast-paced offense. It seemed like on defense, the athletic play of the Wizards, they're a young team. It seemed like sometimes that they were just beating them to the step, and the Celtics were almost struggling to get that flow going for them. So.
Yeah, it just wasn't a pretty night. Celtics, it's weird because Tatum really couldn't get it going at all. It didn't matter what it was. I feel like Tatum was a little bit lackadaisical. He was losing the ball a lot more than he normally does. His 3-point shot tonight, I believe, 0 of 10. I don't even think he hit a single three tonight. You're going to have those games, unfortunately. Jason Tatum playing a freak out of his mind recently, leading the MVP race so far here in early November. I think, again, it all ties back to this team's connectivity and how deep this team really is. And we talk about the longevity, and we talk about how this roster is really well constructed by Brad Stevens, because you see these off nights from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's very rare that you see these two shooting performances poorly on the same night, right? Like usually if Brown's shooting 20%, Tatum shooting, 50, 60% or vice versa. Tonight, that was not the case. So, it was very, very nice to see the Celtics Stay Ready group come in and strengthen this win. And it was also good to see the Tatum and Brown's confidence didn't waver down the stretch, and they were able to pull this one out. And that's big. This is a really, really, really good game. You take a lot from this game. I feel like you can learn a lot from the ugly games, right? Like you obviously you want to try to play as perfect as possible. That's just not going to be the case, especially consistently. So take what you can for this, and you see Minnesota on Sunday.
These are the bad Tatum and Brown games you get now. It really just comes down to whether or not their 3-point shots falling. If you're going to catch them on a bad night, because they were contributing in different ways. I mean, like you said, Justin, earlier, Brown had 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Tatum had 9 rebounds, 8 assists to go along 2 steals. Turnovers wise, they could have been a little bit better, 3 a piece, but still, assist to turnover ratio was there. It's what you're looking for out of Tatum and Brown, right around 2, above 1.8. So, in that regard, I was a little disappointed to see Tatum and Brown. It felt like they waited until the fourth quarter when they needed to go to the paint and attack to start doing those things. Because again, we know how dominant Tatum and Brown can be when their shot is falling from behind the arc. But I would have liked to see it coming out of that second half. I mean, I believe Tatum was 0 of 6 in that first half from behind the arc. I would have liked to see them come out and get downhill and get to the free throw line a little bit more, get their inside game going, guys, because again, tonight, 3 of 22 combined for the Jays from behind the arc is nowhere even close to the amount of threes I want to be seeing them taking, and let alone the amount of makes when that sheer volume comes. So a disappointing shooting performance from the Jays, but I feel like overall, all around, they were able to piece together a good game. So that brings us to our player of the game, and it was a Jason Tatum hot streak, and there was some controversy, I feel like, as to the player of the game and who should win it, because there was a case for a couple guys tonight. We went a little bit of a different route tonight, and guys, before we talk about Sam Hauser and his performance against the Wizards tonight, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's post-game show, of every post-game show, SeatGeek, guys. SeatGeek is the best ticketing app out there for any live event. Guys, we love going to the Celtics. We love going to any live event, and SeatGeek has you covered, guys. At checkout, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. The holidays are right around the corner, and there's nothing better than getting a nice deal on a little gift that you have for a loved one. So guys, use the link down below at the top of our description. And again, a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's post-game show. Guys, let's talk about Sam Hauser in tonight's performance against the Washington Wizards. The numbers aren't eye-popping. They don't jump off the page, but I'll tell you what, tonight, Sam Hauser was a timely scorer for the Celtics. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 3 steals to go alongside 3 of 5 from behind the arc for the sniper off the bench for the C's. Guys, what did you like about Sam Hauser in tonight's win?
He was the spark for the Celtics tonight, and usually he is just filling in the role and being able to find his shots, but he was the one getting the offense started. The first shot, he made the first 3-pointer. It's a whole new bag that we haven't seen from him. He's been able to drive to the paint. He's picking up on the defensive end on ball. Anyways, is phenomenal. I think that it's something that should be motivating the starting players. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum on the defensive end didn't really seem to have that good of a step on ball guarding up on defenders. It seemed like in individual isolation plays, the Wizards were getting their way on a few shots. You would see Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Poole being able to get a timely mid-range shot that was generally open. But Sam Hauser was one of the ones out there disrupting those types of plays. And if we can get more than just the 3-point shooter of Sam Hauser, we're getting a very key player moving forward, especially going into NBA Cup.
Sam Hauser's no longer just this pasty white guy who can shoot 3-pointers. Sam Hauser, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to see if I can do a little bit of my magic here and kind of flick the graphic back on the screen. Look at all those threes on the screen. Sam Hauser's specialty are threes, but it's not the 3-point percentage that I'm looking at, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 3 steals for Mr. Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser, we talk about the evolution of the game for Jason Tatum. We talk about the evolution of the game for Jaylen Brown. Let's talk about the evolution of the game for Sam Hauser, because Sam Hauser has been able to hold his own on the defensive end, and he's been doing it more and more every single night. He's no longer getting blown by. He's able to hold his own on the defensive end, on the perimeter, and I think that's so crucial. I think that's so important. You can tell game by game that Sam Hauser is getting more and more comfortable, and that's just going beyond his shot. You want to talk about his shot? Sam Hauser's putting the ball on the floor, fellas. Sam Hauser, we see a little float game from Sam Hauser here and there, right? So I think that's really important, because Sam Hauser, not only, in my opinion, one of the best shot creators in the association, he's getting after it, and he's doing different things, right? We talk about what can you do if you're not scoring the basketball? Rob, that's your biggest thing. If you were a coach, you'd be that guy. You'd be like, you're running sprints. If you're shooting 0 of 10 and you're not grabbing rebounds and getting assists and steals, you're running sprints. It's so important that Sam Hauser's turned out to be this role player that he's turned into, and he's filling that role really well. Guys, this is an undrafted two-way player, sparked Brad Stevens' eye in Summer League. Now he comes in and he's playing a huge role on a championship team. Not only a championship team, a team that has a really good chance of going back-to-back for the first time in over 7 years. So I think I think the performance that you're seeing from Sam Hauser, I think the consistency that you're seeing from Sam Hauser is just so huge. And that's what stuck out to me tonight, because we know Sam Hauser likes these rims in Washington. We saw the 30 point game from him last year. 10 made 3-pointers before he went out with an ankle injury. It was the 3 steals tonight from Sam Hauser, holding the team under 96 points. The Washington Wizards. Sam Hauser had a lot to do with that defensively. 3 steals. Absolutely love that.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to mention it. I was going to say my go-to phrase. But for Sam, we talk about Pritchard and we talk about Neemias and Luke and their growth in a Celtic uniform. Tonight was a great example on how Sam Hauser and how the Sam Hauser experience has kind of grown here in Boston. And tonight was a great example of that. 13 points. His shot was falling 3 of 5 from behind the arc, guys. 60% is a great clip for any player, let alone Sam Hauser. However, It was the things he was doing when he wasn't standing open for three and taking catch and shoot. He was putting the ball on the floor. He was attacking the rim. He was diving. Running diving baseline for tip-ins and second chance opportunities. Those are the plays you want to see out of Sam Hauser. And those are the plays that elevate his floor as an NBA player. And it's very relieving to see him perform like this tonight. And, Pritchard's been the guy that kind of has done the heavy lifting off the bench. Tonight, Hauser kind of stepped up into that 6-man role as the lead dog off the bench. Now, Al Horford obviously elevates yet another key piece off the bench into the starting rotation. So tonight, Hauser, he stepped in. I loved what I saw from him on the defensive end. 3 steals. We talk about it. He's not just this pasty white boy that can shoot. He he plays defense. He gets stops. Teams love going at him, and they find out quick that, you can't just target him all game because he can hold his own as an individual defender. So I love that from him tonight.
I think teams targeting Sam Hauser throughout the past season and a half, I think that's done nothing but good things for Sam Hauser. You start to get used to it and you start to expect it. So that's something that you have to work on. I mean, obviously, you got to keep that shot flowing with Sam Hauser in the offseason, keep the touch magical. But at the same time, it's like I feel as if Sam Hauser can just I feel like he's just expecting teams to go at him in the switch, in the pick and roll, and him being switched on to a guy like Trae Young, Steph Curry. That's tough. That's a tough task. So I feel as if Sam Hauser each offseason works more and more on his defense and his footwork and his speed, his agility is getting there. So big props to Sam Hauser.
Yes, in a game in which, if you looked at the stat sheet, you would instantly kind of think, all right, Jaylen Brown is probably statistically the player of the game. However, when you were watching the game, Hauser was making all the right plays tonight, and it felt right to give this guy the player of the game. He stepped up big, and honestly, we don't win this game without Sam Hauser tonight, and I think we're not within, a 6-point reach in that fourth quarter territory without him, because he was kind of the guy that was keeping him afloat through the first 3. So props to Sam. He played very well. His first player of the game of the new season, and hopefully more to come. So Sam Hauser night, guys, was huge. Now, we talk about the big man depth a lot this year. It's kind of been the main focal point of these shows, really, with Kristaps Porzingis out tonight. Guys, the Celtics were without both of their big men. No Al Horford out due to an illness. And then obviously Kristaps Porzingis is in recovery mode. He's working with the main Celtics right now and practicing with them in hopes to return to the lineup relatively soon. I would honestly expect that at some point in December. Expect to see the big fella back out there. But guys, as for tonight, Luke Kornet and Neemias Queta were the 2 rotation big mans. We saw Xavier Tillman. He got in there for about 9-10 minutes tonight. After getting a decent amount of coaches' decisions did not played. So when you guys are looking at this big man depth and what they presented tonight, obviously we know the struggles that Neemias Queta has been having recently. What stood out to you on the big men's standpoint, checking in on it tonight?
To carry off of what we were talking about with Sam Hauser on defense being able to handle those mismatches, I feel like the Celtics have been very confident in guarding the switches. I think that the big men have been put in very awkward situations on defense of filling up and taking the guard at the top of the zone. I would expect the stock exchange to start getting to pick up whoever is dribbling the ball down the court, the facilitator, and having Kornet or Queta slide to a wing to guard the baseline, because it seems like they're almost getting lost in those switches and pick and rolls. And I think that's one of the weak points that teams have found a lot of success in attacking the Celtics defense, is being able to drag out Luke Kornet or Neemias Queta outside the perimeter and being able to get by them very easily. I think if we continue to develop Queta, I think IQ is going to come with him as time goes on, and because I feel like he has the athleticism to do so. But Luke Kornet had one of his very good performances. He's one of the most baseline centers in the league here. You know what you're going to get out of Luke Kornet, and you know what to expect from him. And it's just more of a potential thing with Queta.
This to me tonight, and I had mentioned this a couple nights ago on the post-game show against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was not blown away by Keita's game tonight. I don't want to be too harsh on Keita because he's been phenomenal in his role so far this season. He's had a few rough games these past couple games against Cleveland and Washington, but tonight, for the most part, was a huge bounce-back game for the centers. Obviously, Keita had a rough game against Cleveland on Tuesday or a couple nights ago, and then Tillman and Cornette, both coaches' decisions, did not dress. So these three got their opportunity tonight, and it was really important that they came out and did what they did. Luke Cornette, 6-6 off the bench. Xavier Tillman only played 8 minutes, specifically in that second half, but he made every second of that. Those minutes count. A couple of rebounds and 2 huge blocks as well. Went over 2 from distance, but did exactly what he was supposed to do: go sit in that corner and space the floor out for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and take that open shot. Shots are going to fall eventually for him, but tonight they didn't. But huge games from Cornette and Tillman, and we talked about it in the Player of the Game segment with Sam Hauser. I feel as if in the first half you got that energy boost from Luke Cornette. In the second half, you got that energy boost from Xavier Tillman. And to me, those are the most important factors of the game. Like, there's going to be games where Joe Mazzulla is going to have to pull a wild card, right? Like, Tatum's off, Celtics are playing flat, got a few guys at the end of the bench who haven't seen minutes in a few games. What are we going to do? How are we going to go in and change this game, change the direction of the game? Tonight, it was throwing Luke Cornette in those early minutes. And then in the second half, it was throwing Xavier Tillman, who hasn't seen the basketball court too much these past few games. So credit to Joe Mazzulla and credit to those guys staying ready, and a big bounce back game from the big guys. And especially, like you said, Rob, no Al and no Kristaps.
Right. You know, you look at the bench and the big men that we have, and they're such situational backups, which is very nice to have. And, you know, kind of playing off what Justin just said, you kind of got to find situations to play them in different nights. And tonight you saw a little bit more Tillman than normal. And you said, we were talking about, Scal was talking about on the broadcast, you know, Cornette's had a couple games the past 4 or 5 games. He hasn't really seen the floor in a couple of them. Right. And then tonight he gets called upon and he has a big game. Now, I want to put this graphic up on the screen here, guys. Now, what you're looking at here are centers that defend guards the most and least often here. Now, to simplify this, really, when a center is in any situation playing defense on a guard, it is through the switch. Off screens. Now you can see there within that top 6, the Celtics 3 big men that have played a majority of this season all find themselves in the top 6. Neemias Queta leading the way within the league at 34.2% of his minutes are guarding a guard. Now, guys, this is something that to me is a little bit worrisome with the game planning of Joe Mazzulla, because when you look at these big men and what they present, you know, they're not guard switchable bigs. It's one thing when you have a Robert Williams out there, right? When the guard switches on him, you're like, all right, bring it. Or, you know, Al Horford about 4 or 5 years ago. And Al can still do it. We saw him with that block on Darius Garland in the 4th quarter against the Cavs, right? Al can do it, but not out for 82 games on 35 minutes a game, right? That expectation's out the window. So, you know, for me, you know, I've liked what I've seen from Queta and Cornette and less so from Tillman. It was a positive tonight. But to me, you really want to get the best out of these big men, you have to put them in situations to be successful. In a situation that they're not successful in is switching on to guards. We're seeing them do it a lot, and I think it's putting your players in a position to not succeed. So I think if we can find a way to use these big men better and, you know, more efficiently on the defensive end of the floor, guys, I think the court could open up for us defensively.
Yeah, when there's like a Jonas Valanciunas on the court who isn't the most athletic player in the
you're trying to get that switch on the matchup. Exactly.
That's a fantastic matchup for Luke Cornette or Queta. Two big bodies going after rebounds, and all you have to do is be ready for the pick and roll. I think that Tillman is more suitable for the scheme.
For the switch.
And I think that's what they should start to try to develop, but I think that Drew Holiday or Derek White should be picking up at the top of the key. There's no reason for the switches to be accepted, and there are a few ways that the Celtics can start to go over and under the screens and just stick to their man. I think utilizing Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to match up against premier guards or premier wings is the ideal way to go. I think that they're playing way too positionless of basketball recently.
Well, the interesting thing that we haven't seen yet this year is lineups that consist of Jason Tatum playing the 5. And I think it's something that Joe Mazzulla should look into, because when you have a lineup out there, per se, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Sam Hauser, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, right? They're all about from the heights of 6'4" to 6'9", 6'10", right? They're all in that area. And defensively, you're much more versatile. Now, if you can get those guys to commit to team rebounding, crashing the glass, if you can get comfortable and confident that they're going to do that, then that's a lineup and something that I would love to see the Celtics do. They like to play fast, they like to shoot a lot of threes, and they like to run their opponents into the ground defensively. That's a lineup that Jason Tatum, playing him at the 5, that I think, Justin, that they might just want to maybe look into trying.
Yeah, the Celtics are a deep enough team to experiment with, and we kind of mentioned it in our podcast episode where it's like Celtics coming off a championship year, pretty much bringing back the same guys. This gives Joe Mazzulla kind of the availability to try out something a little bit different and really kind of fluctuate with these different lineups and these different schemes, right? I think last year, if you were to try something like that, you'd be like, ooh, like, what are we doing? But, coming off a championship, trying out different things, I think it's much more suitable for the Celtics to work on and try out. It's funny because when Mazzulla was kind of messing with lineups, the Celtics, if you guys remember, had clinched the 1 seed like significantly early. I think they clinched it before April even happened. So Mazzulla kind of was talking about how it's like, we're just going to use these games as practice. Like they essentially had an entire preseason before the playoffs. So I think this gives Joe Mazzulla the flexibility to try out these different lineups. Maybe see Tatum at the 5, as you mentioned. Rob, I think that you have those options, and I think it's important that you do. So we'll have to see, man. I mean, Mazzulla has crazy things up his sleeve all the time. It's like expect the unexpected. So I think that definitely could be a big possibility.
And obviously, it's got to be matchup based, right? You're going against a Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. You don't want to see Tatum out there getting put on an island.
He doesn't play anymore, so you don't have to worry about that.
You don't. But against like a Miami, where you got a small big man in Bam Adebayo, he's the same height as Jason Tatum. Or even the New York Knicks, where you have Karl Anthony Towns down there, but he's by no means a traditional big man. And you stretch him out, you create more space offensively by running that Tatum 5, and then defensively, you can play your brand of basketball, which is switch everything and, put pressure on the ball. So definitely something the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla, I think, should look into. I think it could be an interesting tactic for them. Guys, now, in 2 days here, the Celtics have, first of all, a really wonky schedule here coming up this next week. They play the Timberwolves on the 24th, and then they play the Clippers, I believe, on the 26th, and then they have like a 3-day break.
It's a back-to-back.
Is it a Sunday? Oh, you're right. It's a Sunday, Monday, back-to-back. And then they're on 3 days break over Thanksgiving. They get a little rest. So it's weird. And they go out to Chicago to play Chicago and Cleveland. So it's just a weird schedule. Guys, but before we close out the show here, the Celtics are playing in Minnesota on the 24th at 3:30. This was a matchup. Both times last year, they went toe-to-toe. Both games going into overtime, guys. Obviously, the Timberwolves here not off to a hot start like they were last year when we saw them. What are you guys expecting in this matchup against, anytime you see Anthony Edwards coming to town or you go to his town, it's going to be a big one. So, what are you guys kind of looking for in this matchup?
I think they're going to be showing up. I think that the Timberwolves are one of those teams that the Celtics the Celtics definitely have a whole bunch of red circles on their schedule and the whiteboard in the locker room. I think they know what games that they have to stretch out for, what games they have to be ready for, and then it's a luxury that they can do such a thing, and it kind of seems like they know what games they're walking into, and you'll see them use the methodical approach to a game against the Washington Wizards that they know that they can steal 10 points at the final 2 minutes in the NBA Cup to get the differential. But I just am hoping that they can carry that consistency, and defense has to step up because the Timberwolves, I feel like, the record may not show it. I feel like their roster is much more better put together. I think that Julius Randle and having Dante DiVincenzo coming off the bench is a huge addition for them that will come into play later on in the season.
I think, first of all, I was watching the ending to this Bulls and Hawks game. The Bulls just defeated the Atlanta Hawks, so the Celtics they defeated them by 12. So Celtics should move into first place in their group stage. But to kind of roll off your point about Sunday's game, it's going to be interesting for me to kind of dissect this Celtics and Timberwolves matchup. This is a matchup where the way these two teams played last year, you would have thought that, hey, that was the NBA Finals preview. So I'm excited to see how Sunday plays out. Obviously, no Karl Anthony Towns for the Timberwolves, Julius Randle. It's kind of a newer look team for the Timberwolves. Matinee Sunday, first game of a back-to-back. I don't know how to dissect this game other than this is a game where, in my opinion, Jason Tatum needs to show up. Right? Jason Tatum is off tonight. I think a big time matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We need Jason Tatum, right? No doubt about it. We need Jason Tatum to show up at the Garden and put on a performance against Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I like a lot of trash talk. Right? This could be we saw Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum kind of go at it in the starting five documentary. Now with Jaylen Brown being a part of that starting five documentary season 2, I expect a lot of trash talk in this game. This could be a fun matchup. This could be an absolute fun matchup. So I'm excited for Sunday, and then second night of a back-to-back on Monday against the Clippers. Clips not really looking all that great to start the season, but that's a tough back-to-back nonetheless against two solid Western Conference teams. So Celtics are definitely going to get battle tested this weekend.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great test for Boston. And guys, tonight was a weird test, but the Celtics, they passed the test. They got through. Sometimes a C does get a degree.
Shout out Luke Cornett. Couple DMPs. Shout out Luke Cornett.
Yes.
Couple DMPs come in tonight. Play really solid. Franco, do you have the round of applause for Luke Cornett? Do we have that on? I can't hear it. It's all right.
It was there, though. Everybody imagined it was there.
It was there. It's usually there for Luke Cornett.
That's what we're expecting. Yeah, that's what we're expecting. There it is. There it is. Yeah, shout out Luke. Big game tonight. But guys, again, the Celtics here in the third game of the Emirates NBA Cup, they managed to walk away with a 12-point win in the nation's capital just a day after visiting the White House. Maybe a little White House hangover from Boston. However, sometimes you can just squeak by and beat a team like Washington by 12 on a hangover night. So guys, again, the Celtics will face off against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards and company comes to town this Sunday, November 24th at 3:30 p.m. tip-off afternoon game at the Garden, guys. Tonight, Sam Hauser was your SeatGeek player of the game, 13 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 steals off the bench for Sam. Guys, after that final buzzer sounds on Sunday, come right back here to the CTW YouTube channel, and we will have you covered for Celtics Talk Weekly, post-game live. Guys, you know the drill. Cue up the music, and until next time, as always, the Celtics.